Hi, this is Greg with Health Mat Review, and in this video we are going to do a full comprehensive review of the Bemer Mat. Many people are dealing with pain and other ailments and are trying to decide which PEMF product would be the best for them. And this can be really difficult to do. So in today's video, we're going to review probably everything that you're going to want to know about the Bemer Mat. So stay tuned till the end of the video. First, a little bit about me. I went to university for engineering in the field of mechatronics, which is a combination of mechanical, electrical, and controls engineering. So really think robotics or anything with a battery or that plugs into the wall, just like the Bemer Mat and other products that we review on our website. So let's get started. So what topics are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to be reviewing the following. We're going to talk about the background of the Bemer Mat. We're going to talk about Bemer Mat product offerings and sizes. We're going to talk about Bemer Mat Therapy, including the waveform, frequency, and intensity. We're going to talk about, does Bemer Mat PEMF work? We're going to talk about, does Bemer Mat have the best PEMF? We're going to talk about Bemer Mat certifications, Bemer Mat pricing, Bemer Mat guarantee and warranty, Bemer Mat where to buy and where to find, and considerations and other things that you should know about the Bemer Mat. So stay tuned as we cover each of these topics. So what's the background of the Bemer Mat? Well, Bemer was started in 1990 as a PEMF-only product, and they were likely responsible for popularizing the idea of PEMF therapy, and they did this through their MLM or multi-level marketed structure. Today, there's over 10,000 IBDs, that's independent Bemer distributors worldwide, as part of this MLM structure, and they appear to have built their brand on a good PEMF product. So now let's talk about Bemer product options. Bemer comes in two main product offerings, and these are the Classic Set and the Pro Set. They both have three main common components between them, and these are the B box, which is the controller, the B body, which is the mat, and the B spot, which is the spot applicator. There are a couple small differences. The Pro controller has an LCD screen and is a fancier interface. The Pro mat has been made with Alcantara, which is a sweat, water, and stain resistant material which will be more resilient than the Classic mat. Otherwise, the Pro Set comes with two additional main accessories, and these are the B pad, which is a pad applicator, and the B light, which is a red light therapy applicator and is not actually PEMF. Otherwise, both sets come with some smaller accessories, including a signal tester to allow you to actually test whether or not your applicators are working. Here we have an original Bemer 3000, which I've borrowed from a friend. The new mats have a different appearance in both the mat and the controller, but it's important to know that the PEMF, that is the waveform, the intensity, and the frequency between the Classic, the Pro Set, and this original Bemer 3000 are actually all the same. So there's no difference if you're looking between purchasing a Classic Set, a Pro Set, or an older model like this when it comes to the PEMF. So next up, Bemer Therapy, including the waveform, the frequency, and the intensity. So this is going to be a little bit easier if I do a little bit of artwork for you. So let me grab my handy dandy whiteboard and get to work. The first thing to remember about Bemer Therapy, that is Bemer PEMF, frequency, waveform, and intensity, is that it's all generated by the B-Box controller. And this is the same for the Classic Set, the Pro Set, and this Bemer 3000. The only difference is that the controllers look different. Some are a little fancier, they have the fancy screen, or this one's a little older. But they all generate the same PEMF waveform, frequency, and intensity. So let's talk about the waveform a little bit. So this is my artwork. As you can see, I've worked very hard on this, and I hope it's very clear for you to see in the video. So first, this is the Bemer waveform, and it has a cascading sine wave formation, which is how they describe it. So a cascading sine wave is what you see here. You can see that it has this cascading formation going up and down, and it has this squiggle, which is a sine wave. A sine wave is just a squiggle like that. So that's the first thing to know about why it's called a cascading sine wave. The other thing about the Bemer waveform is that it's bipolar or biphasic, means the same thing. And think, two poles of the Earth, North Pole, South Pole. What happens is for a certain period of time, the Bemer will function like this. And then for another period, you can almost imagine this just turned upside down. It'll go the opposite direction and down. Bipolar, biphasic. So Another important thing to see here is that there's multiple spikes or points throughout this. There's 15 in what you could consider one pulse of the Bemer. And this happens 33 times a second. So that's frequency, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Bemer frequency. So the frequency of the Bemer Mat is said to be 33 hertz. Well, what is a hertz? A hertz is simply how many times per second something happens. So 1 hertz is once per second, 2 hertz is 2 times per second, and you see where I'm going. 10 hertz is 10 times per second, and 33 hertz is 33 times per second. So this single Bemer waveform formation here is actually considered to be 1 Bemer pulse, which means that this formation repeats itself 33 times in 1 second. I've just drawn it much larger here such that you can see what's going on. Now, as we mentioned before, we have these individual sine pulses within this single Bemer pulse. From a traditional or typical definition of PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic fields, we typically consider any individual spike in intensity, 1, 2, or with like a regular sine wave, 1 pulse, 2 pulse, 3 pulse, to be a pulse. So if we consider this to be a single Bemer pulse, but actually it has 15 individual spikes in intensity, this means that we actually have 15 pulses within this single Bemer pulse. And if this single Bemer pulse repeats itself 33 times a second, I'll let you do the math, but I've already done it. 15 times 33 is 495 times per second. 495 pulses per second, or 495 hertz. And this is interesting simply because Bemer says that their frequency is 33. But I guess it really depends on how you look at it. Now, is 495 hertz a bad thing? No, it's just simply interesting to note. This is how they define their waveform. Now, the Bemer Mat also has a second frequency, and this is 10 hertz. And this is for the sleep setting. I'll write this down very neatly. 10 hertz. This is important simply because when you're sleeping, your mind is operating at a much lower frequency than when you're awake and active. So if you're trying to sleep using a Bemer frequency of 33 hertz, you probably wouldn't because your mind would be too active. So just like we were talking about the intensity of the different pulses, let's jump into the Bemer Mat intensity. Bemer intensity. So what do we need to know about the intensity of the Bemer Mat? Well, the first thing to know is that the intensity for the Classic set and the Pro set are actually the same. And these are also the same as the older Bemer 3000. Each of these mats all uses 10 levels of intensity. You might be able to see here on the older controller that there's 10 levels of intensity right here in these 10 buttons. So what else do we need to know about the intensity of the Bemer Mat? Well, it also uses something called the plus signal. And the plus signal is something that happens every 20 seconds, and it goes for 5 pulses. And what it is simply a higher intensity pulse. So let's have a look at my latest little piece of artwork here. And I hope it's legible and everybody can see it. And let's have a look at what we can see here. So when looking at the bee body, the mat, we have 10 levels of intensity, 1 to 10, and these are progressive. So at level 10, we have 35 microtesla, which is only 0.35 microtesla at level 1, or at level 5, 17.5 microtesla. Then when using the plus signal, which happens 5 times every 20 seconds, the pulse gets larger and it gets up to 50 microtesla. Now, let's have a look at the bee pad and the bee spot. Well, these actually have a higher intensity than the bee body mat does. And why is this? This is because the bee pad and the bee spot are used for point application. So for instance, on an elbow, on your knee, or on a certain location of the body. And this allows you to target more directly. So same thing, the bee pad and the bee spot have levels 1 through 10, and they're progressive as well. So 100 microteslas at level 10 would be 10 microtesla at level 1, or 50 microtesla at level 5. And using the B plus, rather the plus signal, we get up to 150 microtesla. So note that level 5 at 50 microtesla for the B pad and the B spot is the same strength as we get with the plus signal on the mat. I've just shown these on a different scale from one to the next. Now, what else can we say about the intensity of the Bemer mat? Well, one thing to note is that this is relatively actually a low intensity. And this is when you compare this to other PEMF mat products and other PEMF products on the market. How else can we describe the intensity of the Bemer mat? Well, typically we're describing the intensity of PEMF in either microtesla or Gauss. So 35 microtesla would be equivalent to 0.35 Gauss. 50 microtesla would be 0.5 Gauss. 100 microtesla, 1 Gauss, and 150 microtesla, 1.5 Gauss. So let's see this Bemer mat in action, and let's see what this intensity can do to move and shake things. So let's check it out. So, does Bemer PEMF work? Well, the definition of PEMF is pulsed electromagnetic field. So, if we have a pulsing electromagnetic field, then we know it's working. So, first we're going to grab our little homemade PEMF tester, and you can check out our other video on how to make one of these for yourself. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the mat, and we're going to see if our little tester works. So as you might be able to see here, this little magnet is moving on its own and moving around. So we know that there is a pulsing electromagnetic field, and this is what is repelling the magnet to move like this. Now, the intensity of the magnetic field of the Bemer mat is rather low, which is why it doesn't move very much. However, we could, for instance, try it with a different applicator. So if we stop this, plug in our intensive applicator. There we are. Start it again. So as you can see here, it again is moving around. Now, the reason for the intensive applicator is because the Bemer mat is not as intensive of a PEMF applicator, which is why they have this individual zone applicator such as this, which is at a slightly higher intensity, as we described earlier in the video. Okay, so next we're going to test out the field strength intensity to see if it actually changes, because levels 1 through 10 are for different intensities. So we're going to stop this, we'll put all this to the side here, and we're going to grab our little magnetic field tester. Okay, now let's check the intensity. So for a low intensity PEMF applicator like the Bemer mat, we're going to need a more sensitive instrument to be able to get a reading on its PEMF. As you could tell with our homemade PEMF tester, it was not very easy to see that little magnet jumping around on the piece of paper. And again, that's because of the low level of intensity. So using this magnetic field strength detector, we can turn on the mat, set it to setting 1, and hopefully you can see the needle there. We can go from 1 to 2 and see the intensity actually increase with the needle. 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. That needle should be moving up. Kind of feel like Bill Nye the Science Guy. So the other interesting thing is that as we move this instrument closer to the mat, the intensity will actually increase. And as we move it away, the intensity rapidly decreases. And again, this is because of the low intensity of the Bemer mat. And this is why Bemer needs to use these other types of applicators, such as this, called the intensive applicator, for a higher intensity PEMF. Does Bemer have the best PEMF waveform? Well, Bemer's waveform is patented. It's unique to them, and it's different than every other PEMF product out there. They also say that they've researched their results extensively, but when we looked into the publicly available research on the PubMed website, which you can check out for yourself, we found them in only a very few select number of studies. These studies showed either neutral results, positive neutral results, or positive/further research required. We've compiled all of this information onto one of our web pages called What is the Best PEMF Therapy? And I'll link this in the description below for you. What we found after reviewing 56 of the most pertinent PEMF studies available on the PubMed research website is that nearly every frequency, intensity, and waveform provided positive results. And this was very surprising to us because not only did they mostly provide positive results, but this was across a very, very wide range of frequencies and intensities, like a very surprisingly wide range. So we put these all into a table on our webpage, What is the Best PEMF Therapy, so you can check them out for yourself, what the results were, and actually links to all of the studies that we reviewed. We've also put this into a graph format such that you're able to see more visually what's going on. So we'll show you this right now just for convenience sake. On this graph, every one of the green dots indicates a positive result study. The orange circle indicates where Bemer falls in terms of frequency and intensity. Now, each of the lines of the chart indicates 10 times the line next to it. So if one dot is 2 lines away from another dot, that means that the one that's 2 lines away is actually 100 times faster frequency or higher intensity. And this is called a logarithmic chart. The reason we had to use this style of chart is because the frequency and intensity range was so wide, we couldn't actually even fit it on one. So we had to use this style called a logarithmic chart. But basically what you can see is that we've got positive results indicated by studies that are literally 1,000 times different from one another if they're 3 lines away from one another. 1,000 times different intensity, 1,000 times slower or faster frequency. And this was, again, very, very surprising and offered a different perspective onto what is the best PEMF therapy, because all of these results across this entire chart indicated positive. Important for me to note is that many of the studies that we reviewed from the PubMed website were not within the therapeutic realm of PEMF. And this means that their intensities or frequencies were too high. Now this is because these were performed in laboratories using typically, and actually rather I should say frequently, not PEMF products that are publicly available. These research labs would actually construct their own PEMF device to test. So what is the therapeutic realm of PEMF? Well, this is commonly agreed upon as the realm of 1 to 10 Gauss and from 0 to 50 Hertz. Now, this is reflected in typically all of the PubMed research studies that did fall within this range. Now, the Bemer Mat itself, where does it fall along these lines? It falls right into the right sector for the frequency. However, the intensity seems to be a little on the low side. And we think this is why they have the individual intensive applicators, such as the B-Spot and the B-Pad, because they do get up to 1 and 1.5 Gauss using the plus signal. Now, all this being said, it does appear that Bemer has a quality PEMF product that is highly effective for many, many people, similar to all the positive results through that wide range of frequencies and intensities that we saw on the PubMed website. This being said, I'm still going to invite you to subscribe to our channel because we will be diving deeper into the Bemer's waveform, frequency, and intensity and taking an up-close and personal look at those things. So now let's jump on to the Bemer certifications. Bemer Mat certifications. So the first certification that the Bemer Mat has, which we'll speak about, is called the MDC marking. This stands for Medical Device Certification, and it's provided by an independent review company called MDC, which operates in Europe. And what they do is they review medical devices to see whether or not they're safe for use. And companies will actually pay the MDC to provide this certification for their product. So the company will send their product to them for testing, they will pay their fee, and then if it is approved, they can then put this MDC marking on their product. The next certification that the Bemer has is called the CE marking. What does the CE stand for? Well, it stands for European Conformity. And you might have noticed that the C and the E are backwards there, and that's because this is actually a French thing. So they actually say it Conformité Européenne, if I said that right. So the CE marking is something that typically only European products will have. Whether they're sold in Europe or they're produced there, typically they'll have this marking. Now, the interesting thing about the CE marking is that companies can actually put it on their product without actually having their product reviewed and approved by anyone. They can simply put the CE marking there to state, yes, we conform to these rules and regulations around the CE marking, but they don't actually have to get their product approved and reviewed. So how do we know if their product actually was approved and reviewed by the CE? It will have a number with it. So instead of just having a CE, they'll actually have a CE with a number there, which is their review or approval number. Okay, so now let's talk about FDA approvals and FDA certifications. So, Bemer Mat FDA approval. What does the Bemer Mat actually have? It has something called the FDA 510K form. And we see this very, very commonly misinterpreted online when we looked into this, and it's easy to understand why. The FDA has such a wide variety of classifications. It's very difficult to see what's actually going on and very difficult to read through their jargon and lingo when trying to read the FDA website. So we spent some time on this and found out that despite many people saying the Bemer Mat is FDA approved, it actually isn't falling under the classical sense of FDA approval. Classical sense FDA approval is something that pharmaceutical companies, for instance, will spend millions of dollars on to have a drug approved. What the Bemer Mat has is a 510K form. So what is this 510K form? Well, it's something that the FDA requires for some Class 1 and Class 2 medical devices. So how does this work? Well, a company or manufacturer needs to submit the 510K form to the FDA at least 90 days before selling or marketing their product in the USA. Okay, so then what happens? The FDA takes this application and then they review the product and its application to see whether or not this device or product falls into a category of devices that the FDA has already deemed safe for use by the public. And this is what happens with the Bemer Mat. The FDA has determined that the Bemer Mat falls into a classification of products called powered muscle stimulators, which means that they are intended for muscle conditioning only and not for patients with medical conditions. So, very interesting. You can find links to more information on this and to the FDA's information on the Bemer Mat on our website, and we'll put them also in the video notes below. Bemer Mat pricing. So the Bemer Mat Pro set with 4 applicators including the mat rings in at $5,990 US, as opposed to the Bemer Classic set with 2 applicators ringing in at $4,290 US. So now let's talk about what guarantees and warranty you get with these price points. Bemer guarantee and warranty. So the Bemer Mat has a 30-day money-back guarantee policy. And this is going to be minus a 10% restocking fee, so that'll cost you between $400 and $600 US to return the product, depending on whether or not you've purchased the Classic Mat or the Pro Mat. So this is, however, dependent upon some very important terms and conditions. Number one of which is that the product needs to be in its original unopened packaging, which means that if you receive the product on day one, try it out, don't like it, or for any other reason wish to return it, it's too late. However, if you do have the product in its original unopened packaging and you have the original product invoice, then you can return the Bemer product. And then it will only cost you that 10% restocking fee, and you'll need to pay for the shipping and handling for the return. A caveat to this is that if you become an IBD, that is Independent Bemer Distributor, part of the MLM distribution process, then you automatically lose your right to the 30-day money-back guarantee policy. Now, something else to know is that if you purchase your product out of the private inventory of an IBD, then you also do not get the 30-day money-back guarantee policy, and you'll also need to go online yourself to register your product for warranty. If, however, you purchase your product from the official Bemer Group website, then your product is automatically registered for warranty and you automatically get the 30-day money-back guarantee policy. If you're interested in checking out another PEMF product with a better return policy, you should check out our website because we have more than one PEMF product compared there and show what all of their individual return policies are. As for the warranty, Bemer products all have a 3-year warranty period, and this is except for the B-Box controller and the B-Lite. Now, these items only have a 6-month warranty. This is very, very important to consider because the rest of the Bemer products, that is the applicators like the mat or individual intensive applicator, these don't have much going on in them. They're really little more than a coil of wire. The complex part of this system is inside the controller. There's a lot more that can go wrong in here. A lot of circuitry, programming, and other components. So in my experience, if anything's going to fail, it's not the coil of wire, it's all the circuitry and electronics that go behind it, which is why it's so important to consider the warranty behind the PEMF controllers, or signal generators as you could also call them, like the B-Box. So where to buy and where to find the Bemer Mat? Well, there's many places to go and buy a Bemer Mat, and this is because of all of the IBDs, independent Bemer distributors. Any IBD will sell you a mat set, or you can go to the official Bemer Group website and purchase a mat there. Or if you're looking for a used mat, I recommend checking out eBay for their buyer protection policies. Now, we'll provide links to all of these in the video description as well as on our website. A Google search in your area for Bemer will likely turn up more than one location for an IBD or another location where you can go to test and try out the Bemer Mat. We would recommend this because if you order it, once you open it, you can't return it. Okay, so now for the interesting stuff, considerations and other things to know. So one thing that we found interesting about the Bemer Mat is that the sleep frequency program is at 10 Hertz. Now, we Googled this and looked into it and found that when we get sleepy, our minds are operating at a frequency of 4 to 8 Hertz, and this is called the theta wavelength range. And then when we're in a deep sleep, our brains are operating between 0.5 to 4 Hertz, which is the delta wavelength range. Now, 10 Hertz, on the other hand, actually falls into the alpha wavelength range, and this is associated with a state of relaxation, but still being awake. Therefore, we think that a lower frequency would likely perform much better to help with sleep, especially a frequency between 0.5 to 4 Hertz. Another interesting topic that we wanted to quickly mention is the topic of far infrared therapy. We find that the reasons people are looking for PEMF therapy are quite frequently things like for better circulation or for some pain relief. And interestingly enough, these are things that can also be helped by far infrared therapy. So if you haven't heard of or considered far infrared, we recommend that you check it out or learn more because it's actually something that can be used together or at the same time as PEMF therapy. In fact, some products even combine both far infrared and PEMF therapy into one product. Check out our website for more information on this. This has all been a multitude of information, and it might have even raised more questions for you than it's actually answered. But one question that comes up time and time again is, what is the best PEMF? So check out our video or our webpage on this topic to find out what the research and facts say. So after reviewing the Bemer Mat product in depth and comparing it with the research, it appears to be a good PEMF product, and it's likely effective for many people. Remember, do your own research and make your own choices about these products based on what you've learned. So I invite you to check out our website and our other videos for more information to help you make those choices. Making this video has been way too much fun. So if you enjoyed it as much as we did, please share it with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember, it's usually what we don't know that can make the biggest difference for ourselves. And with that, I'll see you next time.